On today's Locked On Senators, we'll get into whether the grass is greener now that the Sens are expected to name Travis Green their next head coach.
And we continue our exit interviews with the trio of forwards. Spent a lot of time on the ice together last season.
We'll get into all that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 1040 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go. It's the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. Join your friends and download Monopoly Go now free in the App Store or Google Play. You can also follow the show on social media. We're at Sens Central on Twitter, LockedOn.Senators on Instagram. The show is free and available on all podcast platforms, including on YouTube, where we say hello and let you know that a like, comment, and subscription go a long way to helping the show grow. Yesterday, you could have watched our breaking news video after the reports came out from Darren Dreger that Travis Green is expected to be this next Sens head coach. Today is Tuesday, May 7th. Pilsy, it's been about 24 hours since that tweet. Take me through your ride of emotions to get to where you are right now.
Well, immediate emotion, and it can't be denied. I feel like all Sens fans had the same reaction, is disappointment, right? You're looking at the other candidates that, Ross, we just did an episode that morning of 4 potential candidates, and we kind of glossed over Travis Green because we're like, okay, he's the underwhelming guy among these 4.
You could look at the thumbnail, and I almost hid him behind our faces.
Yeah, like it didn't seem like he was the top guy. It was not the guy we were most excited about or anything like that, and that's fine. And then hours later, yeah, he's kind of tucked away in there.
That was on purpose.
Yeah. Hours later, it's announced that he's expected to be named the next head coach of the Ottawa Senators. Now, there's good and bad things about the Travis Green hiring, in my opinion, because the good thing is this is a guy with NHL experience. So the people that are worried about the Sens hiring another coach with limited experience, Ross, you tweeted out
it was Steve Lloyd from TSN 1200 who said this was the third most experienced coach the Sens have hired, which blew my mind.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not a very usual thing for the Ottawa Senators to hire someone with a lot of NHL coaching experience. So you got the NHL coaching experience. So that's check one off the box. You're going to get a guy who, and if you listen to Frankie Corrado on TSN 1200, he played for Green in Utica when Green first started coaching in the AHL. And he said the conditioning, the attention to detail, and the communication, those are all 3 kind of things he really hammered on when it comes to Travis Green's coaching style. So there are some positives there. The negatives, obviously, is not a guy with a lot of playoff experience or success, just the one playoff time in
the bubble.
Yeah, in the bubble, where he does a qualifying round, a first round, and then gets knocked out in the second round. So not exactly the success you want in the postseason, but I mean, the Senators got to get to the postseason before we start worrying about having success in the postseason. And I think this is a guy this is his big second chance. Sure, he was in New Jersey, but he was an associate coach interim.
Doesn't count.
It wasn't really a full opportunity for him. This is a second chance for him, and he's going to have a lot of things that he's learned from his time that he's going to try to shift and change. So overall, Ross, I think the best way to describe my feelings about this hiring is cautiously optimistic. I'm not down in the dumps. I'm not one of those Sens fans that are like, wow, Steve Stais sucks. Like, what a bad move. Anything like that.
Have you heard the new nickname? They're calling him Sleepy Stevie Stais.
Well, hey, sleepy and steady. There's a fine line between those two things. You could go either way.
Keeps it between the buoys. Sleepy, you're veering off the road, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Keep her in between the ditches there, Stevie. But
all the wheels on too, eh?
Yeah, that's important. That's important. I get Sens fans' frustration, though. It just seems like, as a fan of the Ottawa Senators, we don't get nice things. We get things that are shined up and polished and are meant to look good, but in reality, they may not be exactly what we're looking for. But I'm willing to give this guy a full chance, Travis Green, a full chance until December. Because if he can get off to a hot start, if he can get us past the curse of November, then I'm on board. But if it's the same old with the Sens, starting slow out the gate, then I'm out. I can't do another bad start for this franchise. I can't.
I hope you're right. And I looked, and Stevie, we got a tweet from Stevie today. The November record wasn't great for Travis Green in Vancouver.
But Ian Mendez points out his starts, so his October records are actually very good. So hopefully, if he can get off to a hot enough October, then the cold November maybe isn't that big of a deal. We are really grasping at straws here. This is loser mentality. But we're the Locked On Senators podcast. We just, what are we, episode 1042 today? 40. And we've covered 0 playoff games. So that's where we're at. That's where
we're at. Look, Travis Green, I think the best thing you can say about him is look at Vancouver. And don't look at Vancouver under Travis Green. Look at them now. And let's remember that Bruce Boudreau was in between and he didn't do great. Because I'm seeing a lot of people saying, oh, Rick Tocchet took over a similar Vancouver team and he figured them out. And it's like, well, Brucey Boudreau was in the middle there, and the players had some weak things to say about him when he left. But yeah, I think there's a lot of parallels you can draw between Rick Tocchet, who had a very poor. If Rick Tocchet had been hired for the Ottawa Senators job before DJ Smith instead of DJ Smith, people would have flipped out and been so mad about it. Guaranteed.
I would have loved it. I've been a Rick Tocchet guy ever since he started coaching, but
people would have pointed to the record. They would have pointed and said, nope. They would have said it's going to be hard work, and no X's and O's. I think it's all about now. Who is Travis Green? This is before the Sens have even announced that he's hired. Who's he going to surround himself with? I saw John Rodenberg of TSN 1200 mention the name Nolan Baumgartner. They'd been coaching together in Utica for the Vancouver Canucks AHL team. They coached together at the NHL team. I would imagine we see him on the bench. He was with the Manitoba Moose as an assistant coach this year. I don't know if he's going to run the decor, run the PK, but I would expect him to be on the staff. And then we'll see how he builds it out from there. I'd like to have a guy with experience as the old associate coach with the role that Jack Capuano's in right now. I'd like to see somebody with at least head coaching experience somewhere in their past, but those guys won't be available early on because they're all holding out hope that they're going to get one of these 5, I guess now, because St. Louis has hired Drew Bannister, their interim head coach. They've announced it too. So it's like
disrespecting the draft lottery.
Well, we'll get to the draft lottery at the end of today's show. You know we will. But that's where I think is going to be the most important. For more, I mean, go check out. We did 45 minutes strictly on it last night.
I have a couple more points, though, because reading some new articles and hearing some more people that have been talking. So Ian Mendez, obviously, go check his article out at The Athletic. He mentioned and he points out that one of the areas where Travis Green teams struggled the most was penalty killing. And that really makes me nervous because this is an Ottawa Senators team that struggled in penalty killing as well. So that's where, and you mentioned his typical partner coach Baumgartner there. If he was the guy running the PK the whole time and he's coming back to run the PK here, that makes me a little nervous. That's why I said I almost think the head coaching job obviously is very important. But for me, I feel like the assistant coaches get overlooked because the special teams for this franchise has been so weird. I want X's and O's detail-orientated guys on the special teams. PK and or power play, you got to figure this out, especially the power play. Like the penalty kill, the Senators aren't necessarily built to be a strong shutdown defensive team, but offensively, with the 10 guys you could get on 2 power play units, you gotta find a way to have success somehow. So that's going to be my main focus, is who are the assistants they're bringing in and how can they fix this team's special teams disasters.
4 minutes ago, Ian Mendez tweets out, it's official. Travis Green is the next head coach of the Ottawa Senators. An introductory press conference will take place on Wednesday. So we will record Locked On Senators immediately following that availability. We will get all of the insight we can attain from that conversation. I hope Ottawa media asks some important questions about specific players, how he feels he can get Tim Stützle back to a superstar level, get Brady Tkachuk committed at both ends of the ice, and have the next level to every single player on this team. How is he going to do it? I'd like to hear some answers from him. But for today, we're going to move on to Tim Stützle's exit interview, as we are with Claude Giroux and Mathew Joseph. And then we're going to wrap up today's show with a little draft lottery luck. We're going to do our final spins because tonight at 5:30 Central for me, 6:30 Eastern, there will be the draft lottery. So we'll get you a quick preview of that at the end of today's show. That's all coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monopoly Go. All right, I know you guys are thinking, flag on the play, coach's challenge. You guys already talked about Monopoly Go at the start of this episode, but there's just so much good stuff in this game, we got to let you know. Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much you can get. Like unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the board with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults, and Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A lot of different things like unique mini games, like digging for treasure, or they even got a robot pachinko machine. There's always something new and timed events that help you win big. They got massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or App Store. Game on with Monopoly Go.
Today's episode is also brought to you by our great friends with Farm to Fork, farmtoforkdelivery.ca. It's a premium meat and seafood company that services all of Ontario, Quebec, and even our friends up in Nunavut. So if you're looking to stock up for the summer season on the barbecue, make sure you go get Farm to Fork. They are delicious. They average 5 stars on Google. All natural products, ethically raised, antibiotic, and hormone-free. So how do they keep it so fresh when they're frozen? Well, they're flash frozen after being hand cut at the butcher's table, which makes for a much fresher product. Products are individually vacuum packed as well, which keeps the moisture and keeps everything in, but also allows you to take out only what you need. They've also got free and convenient delivery, so save money on gas, save time, especially when you don't want to front the weather. Just receive notifications on your phone as your order is nearing your home. They've got great ribeyes. I'm all in on those. Specialty high-end cuts. Impress your friends. Get the tomahawk steaks. Why not? As well as sustainable seafood. So go check them out today. Farm2forkdelivery.ca. Think Zoob. Think Farm 2, the number 2. Farm2forkdelivery.ca and use our promo code LOSP10 for 10% off your first purchase. Taste the Farm to Fork difference. You will never go back to grocery store meats. All right, Pilsy. Exciting times. Maybe nervous times, but exciting times for the Ottawa Senators right now, hiring their 14th coach in franchise history. And it's a bit of an asterisk because obviously the late, great Roger Neilson was given an opportunity to coach 2 games during, I believe, the 2003 season to get to a huge milestone in his career. But 13 really is the number of full-time head coaches that the Ottawa Senators have had, and he will be introduced tomorrow at a press conference. Still nothing from the Ottawa Senators because I'm looking in. I want the hiring quote. I want to hear from Steve Staios at least like an intro, like give me a paragraph, give me something. Why is Travis Green the guy that he felt? And not only him. And that's where I think I'm giving this more of a benefit of the doubt, Pilsy. This wasn't just Steve Staios sitting in a room one-on-one with Travis Green. We saw the reports from Bruce Garriock that Travis Green had conversations with Michael Andlauer. I would imagine Sean Tierney, the director of analytics, was involved in certain meetings. I would imagine Matt Nichol is probably even a part of it because he's the director. Like they're creating
probably as well.
Of course, Ryan Bonus would be in the meetings as well. There's a group of individuals. Jacques Martin, we know, was a part of the coaching search as well. So this wasn't just one person. This is the nucleus of the new regime. And we can't be going on and on about how, look, we're going to give these guys a proper opportunity. And then the first thing they do, no disrespect to Boris Kachuk, the first real thing they do, and all of a sudden we're got our pitchforks out. I want to see, first things first, what everyone has to say for themselves at this press conference. Time to be determined. We'll tweet that out at Sens Central when it becomes available. But I want to give this an opportunity. We waited so long under the Eugene Melnyk years, and I know that there's 7 years of scar tissue built up for Sens fans. It's not the case for this ownership regime. They have 1 year of scar tissue built up. And I would like to see them acknowledge that a little bit more. I saw our guy, Defense Minister, put out a classic Defense Minister thread where he's discussing why he hates it. And look, there's some valid points in there, but I would like to think that there's good reason why Travis Green was the guy. I've also heard that Dean Evison, Craig Berube, and Todd McClellan not interested in taking the job. So we'll go with that from what it will. Pilsy, exit interviews. We are going to do Mathew Joseph's exit interview. It was almost a tale of two seasons for Mathew Joseph, who played 72 games this year, was able to stay healthy after only playing 56 last year. Last year was a complete disappointment. Only 3 goals. He matched that like a week into the season. Pilsy, how would you describe Mathew Joseph's season?
Disorientated a little bit, Ross, right? Like, it was very unfortunate with Tarasenko being brought in. I thought that put Mathew Joseph on a perfect spot to be a third-line winger. And then when Tarasenko was traded, Mathew Joseph had to be up, elevated in the lineup, and that didn't really work. Then he got brought back down and then back up again. And it was unfortunate because I feel like it put a dark cloud over what was actually a really great season for Mathew Joseph. I mean, in 72 games, he gets 11 goals, 24 assists, a massive improvement from last season when we all kind of wrote him off and were like, okay, he's going to be the salary cap dump to get Shane Pinto signed, put him as a sweetener in a trade, just get rid of him, get him out of here. But now you see that he adds some value to this team. If the Ottawa Senators, and I hope they do, find a top 6 winger, then he's going to be put back on that third line. He's going to be killing penalties. And the big thing with Mathew Joseph that cannot be understated is his speed. When the Ottawa Senators lost a bunch of players throughout, the one characteristic I felt this team was lacking the whole time was speed. They've got it with Mathew Joseph, and his speed is what makes him an excellent penalty killer. And he spent a lot of time killing penalties. He's 5th on the team in total amount of ice while shorthanded, 127 minutes. And I just really think to have an offensive threat like him on the penalty kill does so much for your team. And I'm no longer thinking about moving Mathew Joseph to clear up some salary cap space. I think his contract is in the right spot, and this is a guy that they need to keep to help their bottom 6 out.
I think they'd like to keep him, but if the right move came along for $3 million off the books, I wouldn't be opposed. Like, he's not an untouchable for me. I understand that he has value, but for me, like, the second half of the season was really disappointing, and he was in a spot to succeed. He had a great start to the season. Don't get me wrong, but it really fell off a cliff after New Year's. In his final, 30 games, he had 3 goals, and 2 of them came in one game against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Like, he was public skating the last 12 games of the season. 0 points, -7. Was not a contributing member, even though he was on Tim Stützle's wing. It really has to be balanced, though, because he was so hot at the start of the season, and he was able to be I think he was like a top performer on the team over the course of the first number of months. But the last 27 games, having 1 goal, Like that was flashbacks trauma for me of last season of a guy who just could not finish, and really, considering how much opportunity he got, kind of underwhelmed me. So I get that it was like, wow, what a bounce back performance from Joseph, but the end of the season kind of soured me on it a little bit. I know he has his role, but to me, he cannot be in the top 6. That's where I'll draw the line. He cannot be a top 6 player. He is a third line player, and that's the ceiling where I'd put him in the lineup.
But that's fine, Ross. He's paid as a third line winger, and that's
played in the top 6 all year.
But I think just because you get an opportunity to play in the top 6 doesn't mean you're meant to be there or that you can succeed there, right? Like you would think that's the case, but I don't think every player works out like that. And I think it's a little unfair to look at everyone's March and April individually, because other than Brady Tkachuk, I think every single player on this team sucked in March and April. Like the team collectively was bad during that stretch. So yeah, it's an interesting case for Mathew Joseph, but Ross, I really see his value, because if you did get rid of him, then this team has such limited speed, and I think that's going to hurt them in the long run. So I like Mathew Joseph on this team, but I think the one thing we can agree on is you got to find a way to keep him on that third line.
Exactly, because look, even like I don't know what's holding him back in a top 6 role, because he does forecheck well, and he does kind of.
But some players just can't make that jump, Ross, and that's fine. Like being a third line NHL player is pretty damn good. Not everyone's able to make that jump to the next step, and yeah, I think that's okay. Like if he was getting paid $5.5 million, okay, we got to figure this out. You got to find a way to be a top 6 player. But he's making under $3 million. That's perfect third line money for me.
Okay, so then the Senators need to address around him then and add top 6 depth, so that they can even a guy who's on the third line that can jump up, because it's going to happen with injury during the season. But I just didn't like how he stayed up there without any kind of confrontation. Like that line with Joseph, Stutzle, and Giroux played more together, almost double than any other line on the Ottawa Senators this season. So it almost just felt that I know Jacques didn't have the options. Like what was he going to do? Put Boris up on the top 6? Like there really wasn't that. They tried even at one point. They had Joseph and Parker Kelly in the top 6 for a couple of games. Like they really need to address the depth on this team up front. The top end talent is there. Injuries are going to happen. You can't predict both of your top 6 centermen out of the lineup, but like this is on the wing. Like this shouldn't be the case. So Joseph, to me, cannot be in the top 6, even as a third piece, complementary piece on a line. The best he played all year was when he was on the third line with Ridley Gregg and Vladimir Tarasenko. That line was awesome. So maybe let's think about what made that line successful. Obviously, you have Ridley hounding pucks, being a solid two-way guy. For me, it's him kind of contrasting with a guy who's slower but can make plays. So you know who would be the perfect guy, I think, to play on a line? And again, would you have him on a third line? I don't know, but stylistically, a Tyler Toffoli, where it's like he knows where to be to get in the right spots, just like Tarasenko. And I think Joseph needs that, and he needs to play with guys who have very high hockey sense to even have a chance to be in a position to produce offense. But look, all in all, the numbers are decent. I would have liked to have seen him, especially based on his start, crack 40 points. Couldn't do that, finishes with 35, but there is a lot to like on a bounce back season from Mathew Joseph. What would you like to see better from him next year to really kind of make it not worth his contract? He's got 2 more years left at 2.95, but what would be a successful upcoming season to you for Joseph?
Yeah, I think the 40-point mark is a fair spot, Ross. I think like I want him to be maybe not necessarily the driver on a third line, but not the third guy on the third line, right? Like he needs to be a guy that's using his speed to set up a goal scorer, like you mentioned, a Toffoli, a Tarasenko, something like that. So honestly, 40 points, try to hit 40 points and find some consistency throughout the entire season, I think would be where I would lean with Mathew Joseph.
We do have to give a ton of credit to him. One, he's an all-time vibes guy, great locker room guy, and he also set a career high in points. His previous career high was in his rookie season when he had 26, so he got 9 more points than his previous career high. But
he had 30 in the year he was traded to Ottawa. 18 with Tampa, 12 with Ottawa.
I didn't add them together. Nice catch there.
Guy.
But still a career high though. Still a career high. Correct. By 5. Instead of 9. So Mathew Joseph, let us know in the comments what you think about Joseph's season, because for me, he's a very interesting case study of how when things were going good, it was going great for him, and when things were going bad, it was going awful for him. So where's the balance with Mathew Joseph? Let us know in the comments. Would love to get people's opinions on the season that was and what your expectations are going forward for Mathew Joseph. All right, on the other side, we are going to get to our exit interviews for 2 of the most beloved Ottawa Senators, Timmy Stu and G Money. That's coming up next with a little draft lottery sprinkled in. That's tonight at 6:30 Eastern. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Guys, it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing. The regular season is going, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. Guaranteed. That's $150 whether you win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. You can even bet on the AHL. You can bet on PWHL. You can bet on so many things. FanDuel always has fun ways to get you in on the action. Futures, specials, parlays, whatever you like, you can find it on FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic dub. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, Pillsy. Welcome back, everyone. Locked On Senators, your team every day. For more, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. I believe that Spotify now shows the data for subscription, so please subscribe, follow along with the podcast there. It really does go a long way to helping the show grow here. Over 1,300 episodes if you include our postcast bonus coverage like we had yesterday. Shout out to Jack Richardson for joining us as well. Really fun conversation. If you haven't heard it yet, go check it out. Last night, we got some great guests lined up. We're expecting to have Jamie Noodles McLennan on in the next week or so. And if you go to the connections page on Elite Prospects, only 2 people have played more seasons with Travis Green as a player than Jamie McLennan. So some insight there. We talked about Frankie Corrado on TSN 1200. He knows him as a coach. I'd like to know Travis Green as a player and person a little bit better. So we'll hopefully bring
get Alfie on to talk about that, or maybe Chris Neal.
Maybe Chris Neal would be a good one. I loved it. And I believe the hit was on Shane Knighty. I saw the clip. Somebody posted the clip. Unreal. And it was just a hit behind the net and all chaos breaks out. Travis Green's pointing at the bench, yelling at Chris Neal. And then Darcy Tucker just flies in doing his thing. Travis Green, what an animal as a player. But we'll see what the coaching looks like for the Ottawa Senators. I can't stress it enough how important tomorrow's press conference is for him. To cool the fan base. They're hot. And they should be. 7 years without playoffs in Ottawa. We're greasing our way to the top of the poll of the longest droughts without Stanley Cup playoffs. Back to our exit interviews, a player that is synonymous with the either success or failure of the Ottawa Senators is the highest draft pick on the team. It's Tim Stützle, who had an underwhelming season by his account, by fans' account, and when you compare to the breakout 90-point season that he had the previous year. Timmy Superstar, he was ascending. He baseball batted a home run overtime winner in, but he could not find the consistency that gave him that enormous jump to the upper echelon, in our opinion, of the league as a 21-year-old. But at 22, he found out the NHL, it's not guaranteed that success is linear.
Well, it's important to mention too, Ross, and I'll give you credit. You were on this beat all season, that Tim Stützle was dealing with a wrist injury since game 4. So he had been dealing with an injury, and then there were some other things that came along the way. Obviously, that hit at the end of the year. Mikkola hit him into the boards. That ended things for him, unfortunately. But Ross, I hate to do this, but it is the leading story when it comes to Tim Stützle. 1 power play goal. 1 power play goal all year, and it came late in the year. I believe it was against the San Jose Sharks even. So not that much cause for celebration. And Ross, we're talking about a guy who played 258 minutes on the man advantage, and he's only able to muster up 1 goal. That's good for a 2.9 shooting percentage. And Ross, the thing I was thinking about too is, okay, maybe he wasn't scoring a lot, right? On the power play just once. It's not great, but he still got 19 power play assists. 15 of those 19 were secondary power play assists. Now, I'm not totally diminishing that, but this was an off year for Timmy.
He'd be the first to tell you that too.
Yeah, and he knows it, but it's like the goaltending conversation, Ross. If you can't get your top offensively talented players to start providing offense on the power play, your team's not going to have success. You need to be able to capitalize on those moments.
Especially when your second and third wave of centermen are both out of the lineup for huge parts of the year, right? You're just like, Timmy, we need you, buddy. And it's a lot to ask of a 22-year-old guy who turned 22 in January, midway through the season. Say something nice about Tim Stützle. Beat his assist total last year. 52 assists, career high for him, even though he finished 20 points less. Yeah, the 18 goals stands out like a sore thumb. And all we wanted, Pilsy, from like mid-March on, we're like, buddy, get to 20 goals, get to 20 goals, get to 20 goals. He couldn't get there and ultimately was shut down after game 75 with 18 goals, 70 points, and a -17 rating. What also concerns me is the 5-on-5 expected goals percentage being under 50%. It's just not going to cut it. And obviously his season kind of went hand in hand with the next guy we're going to talk about in Claude Giroux, where March and April were just not good enough for either of them. And frankly, February wasn't great for them either. But just overall, like, the good news is that there's still those flashes. You can still see the speed burst through the middle. You can still see the vision. You can still see all that. He just needs to shoot the puck. He needs to find the confidence that he can beat goalies one-on-one, that he can get to the right spots, that like his shooting percentage being 9, it can't happen anymore. He's got to be able
where
to
where the wrist injury comes into play, Ross, right?
Totally. But if you're a superstar in the league, you're shooting more than 9.7%. That's just not, it's not good enough.
A wrist injury has a big part
then
of
should he have been
shot.
playing?
Exactly.
And should he have been playing?
I think that's where the discussion should lead to.
If you're otherwise, you're just padding stats for the goalies on the other side. You're creating whistles, and then the teams can regroup and create their own luck and create their own possession, because Timmy's at his best when he's ripping it. This guy had 39 goals. It's not like he's never scored 20. It's not like he was a 25, 27 goal guy and then all of a sudden he fell to 18. 39 to 18 is just a wild drop off. So look, I still have a ton of faith in him. I'm not worried that, if anything, and he seems like a guy, and you always talk about how the Germans, they wear their heart on their sleeve. They're very hard on themselves.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to be pissed off coming into training camp, and frankly, should be. And I hope that he harnesses that in the right way. I'm sure that Alfie's a great sounding board for him, and I assume Travis Green will be too. Travis Green was a two-way centerman in the National League. He was a guy who was solid at both ends. So to me, Tim Stützle, he's in good hands as a guy who's going to be able to elevate, and people are starting to count him out. They see the 18 goals, and I think that's good. I think there was a lot of pressure on him to be a 100-point guy this upcoming season. We had our bets on it too, and they fell flat. But I think that the revenge tour for Tim Stützle could be one to behold if all goes well.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm down to say more nice things about Timmy, Ross. Like, this guy is the most offensively talented player on the Ottawa Senators. Period. Definitely.
Exclamation mark.
Exclamation mark. Yeah, hell yeah. Get that thrown in the mix. And one thing I found he really did a good job improving on is carrying the puck into the offensive zone. At the start of the year and years past, Timmy would drive me nuts trying to carry the puck and do it all himself and turn it over, and it's an odd man rush the other way. This year, I found he was A, more successful with it, and B, if and when he did get through the team's blue line defense and into the offensive zone, he had a plan with what he was going to do with the puck. Like before, it was like a dog chasing a car. He's just running into the offensive zone, and he's like, oh, shit, like, I'm here. What do I do with this now? Like, and then he's slowing down, he's looking around, and then it's a turnover inevitably again as well. So you don't want that. And I thought he did a lot better job at being responsible defensively when he had to be, as opposed to years past. And I think this is a guy that, I hate to use the term, Ross, we love it though, is just scratching the surface. Like you mentioned how young he is. He hasn't been able to have a consistent pair of wingers on his line. Like, honestly, that top 6 winger might be sneaky one of the more important things for the Ottawa Senators to get, not only to have Mathew Joseph playing on the third line, but to properly set up your most offensively talented player in Tim Stützle. Like, that's what this team needs to do, is start finding the right person to play with Stutzle. I think Giroux does a good job, but he's not the guy for Timmy, and we got to find that guy.
Gotta find that guy. So who is it?
I don't know. Like, I really like the Tyler Toffoli idea, Ross. I've always been a big Tyler Toffoli fan, and it helps Toffoli complete his Canadian tour, as he's been on almost every single Canadian team in the league. And I think like that was a guy that they were looking at and targeting when they went with Evgeny Dadonov instead, right? And Montreal got Toffoli. So I think that would be someone that I'm looking at for sure.
Okay, but do you think that the experiment of having him and Claude Giroux tied at the hip maybe should be over, or are you happy to see that continue for Claude Giroux to be his right winger throughout the season? Because last year, time on ice with, other than Korpisalo, that was Claude Giroux, and it wasn't even close. Timmy and Claude Giroux played 674 minutes together at 5-on-5. The next closest forward was Mathew Joseph at 423. So that's 250 minutes more with Claude Giroux than any other forward.
I'll put it this way. I'm putting Timmy and Claude together on a line in pencil.
Okay.
Right? Like, it's not in pen, it's not in permanent marker. They don't need to be attached, but I think Claude is the right mentor for him, because Claude, as a younger player, major hothead, lots of talent, but needed to find a way to channel that energy. And sure, you still see Claude have outbursts and you see his emotion from time to time, but he's found a way to channel that energy. I think he's a great mentor for Timmy. Are there on ice attributes perfectly aligned together? Maybe not. And you know what? You want to have that flexibility to maybe move Claude Giroux around as well. So it's going to be fascinating, but this season does not define who Tim Stützle is, in my opinion.
Well, next season certainly will bring questions, and hopefully we get the answers that we're looking for. Let us know in the comments what you think about Tim Stützle's season that was, and what your expectations for him are next season. All right, Pillsy, wrapping our exit interviews up today with Claude Giroux. G-Money, at 36 years old, this guy just continues to amaze. Sure, the end of the season wasn't great, but he played all 82 games, finishing with 64 points. And look, to me, what Claude Giroux brings extends well beyond what happens on the ice. What he does for the leadership group, you hear Brady just lauding the experience and what he's able to do to calm everybody down. Now, some people are probably saying, well, how'd it work out on the ice? Well, I tell you that 164 out of 164 games in the 2 years since signing is extremely impressive. It speaks to his off-ice habits. It speaks to his training. Just ask Tony Greco. Go check out that interview from last summer. This guy lives, breathes, sleeps hockey, and you can tell he's nowhere near done. I want him to take the Joe Pavelski curve where, look, 1-2 year deals beyond. He's going into the final year of that 3-year contract right now. I'm sure he expected the Senators to be further along. How would you dive into the season that was with Claude Giroux?
Yeah, I think it's important to state that along with most of the rest of the team, especially his line mates, the end of the season was tough for Claude Giroux. But again, I'm not going to nail that on Claude. The whole team as a group were collectively bad. to play 82 games is massive. 64 points, still contributing. But Ross, I think the one thing we need to highlight the most for Claude Giroux, especially on a team with limited veterans, especially on a team that's very young down the middle, the face-off percentages. I mean, this guy took 1,152 face-offs this season. Josh Norris actually was second with 629. So like nearly half the amount of face-offs that Claude Giroux took. And Ross, it's not just quantity, it's quality. He won 58% of those draws. But what I'm going to circle even more, I'm circling it on my computer as if you guys can see it, but his power play face-off win percentage, 64.6% on the power play. So that's just another thing, and I talked about it with Travis Green and the assistant coaches, is if Claude Giroux's out there, you're winning that face-off 65% of the time, and you have possession right there. And then you've got all these offensive players that can light it up or should be able to light it up on the power play. There's no excuses for the Ottawa Senators power play not to be in the top 15 or even top 10. Like, they have the talent. You get a guy that can win the draw for you, so you immediately have puck possession. And that's where Claude Giroux is so important to this team, because they struggle in face-off percentages in all other areas. Like Josh Norris was above 50, which is good. Tim Stützle, 46.7. You got to find a way to improve that. Ridley Gregg at 43.9. And then you have Pinto at 50.6 and Brady at 50.2. So they got some guys that can do it, but overall, no one does it with the success that Claude Giroux does.
I'm excited to see what he continues to bring, because look, we had the moments of Claude Giroux this year. You think of the slap shot against Columbus in the shootout. He's a gamer, man. He reminds me a lot of Daniel Alfredson, the way he plays, the way he forechecks, the way he makes these little spin up moves when he crosses the blue line. And it's like, okay, I'm looking, I've got the vision. I need to be able to do it. One thing about Claude, I'd like to see him maybe kind of take some of the guys, and he is doing it on the bench, especially with Timmy, but to just make sure that these guys aren't getting too frustrated with themselves earlier on in the year, because, you mentioned it, Claude went through this earlier on in his career where he was the guy who kind of needed to be, pulled back, and you'd rather pull someone back than have to push them, because these guys are driven and they want to be great. I just think that, look, Brady, especially in November when he was trying to fight everybody, and it wasn't good. And I just want Giroux to sit these guys down before the season and be like, look, we're going to lose games this year. We're going to. It happens to everybody, but what are you going to do to be a positive influence so that these 2-game losing streaks don't turn into 5, where you go out west and come back with 0 points on a 5-game trip? That's where his leadership is going to become paramount, is how is he going to be the guy on the ice? I'm still expecting above 60 points next year. It's just a matter of what's the intangible like going to be. I'd like to see him get back to being a plus player. A lot of those minuses he ate was in March and April, where I believe he was minus 11 in those 2 months. So what is he going to do? But still, positive impact player at 5-on-5. That 51.6 expected goals percentage is solid. It's, I think, fourth or fifth on the team behind Pinto, Brady, and one other. I've actually got it pulled up here. Let's find out here. It's Pinto, Brady, and then Claude Giroux among forwards. Sanderson, Zub, Shabbat, Brandstrom, all in there as well. But you know what? I'd like to see him. You mentioned Tim Stützle when we were doing Stutzle's exit interview. I'd like to see him back with Ridley Gregg at some point next season, because I think that was really fun to watch as Ridley was a rookie. And Ridley, I'm expecting to hit the ground running into next season. I think Giroux would be the perfect complement. And then you're taking a little bit of pressure off of Giroux to not have to play 20 minutes a night anymore. I think that would be if they're able to get it to Foley, get a guy in the top 6 to play with Timmy, then maybe you move Giroux and have him. And that way you need a top 9 in the NHL these days. You can't have a top 6. So that could be a move that I think would help both Giroux extend his consistency and help take Ridley Gregg to the next level.
Ross, I hate to bring it to this point, but I think it's a discussion worth having. Are you nervous if this season goes poorly again that Claude Giroux might say, okay, it was fun coming to Ottawa. I made my wife happy for a couple years. We get to have the kids here. But this is a guy with a lot of pride and without a Stanley Cup. Do you think he goes ring chasing if this season goes poorly again in Ottawa?
What I will say, because I don't know the answer, and what I'll say is I wouldn't blame him if he does.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't hold it against him if he does. Heck, if I probably wouldn't have held it against him if he said that this year and said, give me 2 chases at a ring. But he seems loyal. He seems like a guy that, you know what? I'd love him to be a Senator until the day he retires. And he would obviously, and this is fantasy world, but if the Sens won the cup, there's no doubt that he would be the first guy to get it from Brady afterwards. So this is a guy who every team would love to have on theirs. Ottawa has him. Let us know your thoughts on the season that was for Claude Giroux and what your expectations are for him next season. All right, Pilsy, wrapping up today's show, one quick note, and we will get into this more tomorrow when the Senators do have their Travis Green introductory press conference, but we officially have word from the Ottawa Senators. They got their guy. A quote from Steve Staios: after speaking to several highly qualified candidates, it became clear that Travis is the right fit to lead our group. As we've routinely stated, developing a winning culture is paramount for our aspirations of achieving sustained success. Travis has a burning desire to win, is passionate about teaching, and holds his players to a very high standard. We're excited to welcome he and his family to the Ottawa-Gatineau community. Not only your thoughts on that, Pilsy, but I would like your thoughts on the fact that it is a 4-year contract through the 27-28 season.
Yeah, a couple things to break down here. I kind of figured this would be what Steve Staios would said, and I think he's speaking the truth here. But let's not pretend, or let's not get it carried away with acting like this was their top choice. I think that needs to be stated. Sure, there's probably a lot of things they like about Green that fits what they want, but I think it's pretty clear this probably wasn't their top choice. And as far as 4 years go, I think some people on Twitter I'm already seeing are like losing their minds over it. You have to give coaches these types of deals. They're not going to sign regardless. And it's
I was expecting 3.
Is it a big deal? Three or 4? Like, coaching years mean nothing. Like, these guys have the worst job security on planet Earth. So like Ross, there's 4 coaches that got fired this year and their extensions haven't even kicked in yet. So like, coaches contracts, the term is irrelevant to me because it doesn't count against the cap. It doesn't hurt your team if you fire them early. And a lot of these guys, I feel like this probably is a 3-year deal in Green and the Senators' head. It's just, we'll do 4 to make you happy and to get this done, because it's so easy to fire a coach and move on if you want to. So I'm not concerned about that. It's nice that we're finally getting an official announcement here and a quote, but yeah.
The time of tomorrow's press conference is to be determined. Follow along on Twitter at Sens Central for more when that becomes available. But tonight, as you can see from the Tankathon, we are 6 hours, 36 minutes away from the draft lottery at the time of this recording. We've been doing it since the lottery was set, since the season ended. Every day we do one spin. We got Jack to do a spin last night. He gets 2nd overall. We love that. The Senators come in with a 6.5% chance of 1st overall, a 6.7% chance of 2nd overall. Pilsy, that's 13.2% at a top 2 pick. There's like a 0.2% chance at 3rd overall if a team that wins the lottery but jumps up 10 spots and it's to number 2. There's a whole host of things. I wouldn't worry about a 0.2%. Most likely they stay at number 7. There's a smaller chance they move down to 8 and a minuscule chance they move down to number 9. So those are the options. Pilsy, your spin here, your final spin of draft lottery season. Pilsy, with the press conference tomorrow, it's going to be wild how we're going to work this out, because we got to get David Foote on, because tomorrow's a Belleville Sens playoff game day. We're going to do that Thursday. But I always love doing the post-draft lottery mock draft. So we're going to have to find a time to do that. More bonus content, because we are literally your team every day. All right, Pilsy, your time for a spin.
Hit it.
Worst case scenario, Pilsy, as people said, there's a very small chance that the Senators draft 9th overall. Pilsy spin puts them at 9. Who do you have number 1 and 2 here?
Like going to Seattle and Calgary?
No. I now have it. You just said it. I was writing yours into the document, so I didn't have it up.
Perfect.
So Seattle first, Calgary second there. My turn for a spin. Calgary first. I like that. I don't like Montreal at number 2. Ottawa moves down to number 8. I've gotten
Citizens, help us.
I've gotten 8 7 times.
Nice.
That is tough for me. All right, final spin. Let's get us out on a positive note, citizens. No. Senators stay at 7. So we got 7, 8, 9 as our 3 spins on the final day. We're saving the one that matters. We're saving our percentage for the one that matters. That is the spin zone, Pilsy, because it has not. It's not been good. I'm going to pull it up here for those watching on YouTube. Out of our 14 spins, we've got 1 first overall. It's 14 each. 11 there. We've got, oh my goodness, Pilsy. It was a dominant performance from 8th overall, 16 times and then 2. So that's how it breaks down the way we've been doing it. And that is so much more than 14, Pilsy. Let's hope the draft lottery, though, goes better than what we saw here over the course of the last little while. 1 out of 37 we got first overall. Credit to you. You got it.
Yep. Yeah, I got it. Ross, I'm feeling good. Positive Pilsy is here. I'm feeling good that the Senators will either draft first, second, third, or 7th.
Okay.
They're not going 8th or 9th. Not happening.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be at the office tonight. If we do have a winner, we'll have to stay up late and do one right when I'm off work, because it's going to be, the Senators have had 0 lottery luck. Let's remember, the Tim Stützle pick was San Jose's pick that won the lottery. Senators actually moved back that year with their pick to number 5. They have had 0 lottery luck. The best lottery luck the Sens had is when we knew it wasn't their pick and they finished dead last. It moved from 1 to 4. So their pick still fell the most it could, but we were just happy about it because that evened their choice of choosing 4th overall and taking Brady Tkachuk the year before. So hilarious. We're like, it can't get worse. They're dead last. They lost the lottery. Take the player. Hey, great pick, Brady Tkachuk. But then the next year, that's the best the lottery's been to the Ottawa Senators' own pick. Shout out Tim Stützle. Shout out San Jose. I almost want to repay them. Macklin Celebrini, if you don't know much about him, plenty of ties to the Bay Area. His dad is the director of fitness for the Golden State Warriors, director of sports medicine, probably more respectable way to say that. But I wouldn't mind seeing him go to San Jose. Anyways, draft lottery tonight. Really looking forward to that. 6:30 Eastern. And if the Senators do move up, expect more from us. Maybe we'll do a mock draft real quick after that. We will see. We will see tonight. The Ottawa Senators do announce their hiring of Travis Green, making it official. So tomorrow's episode, Belleville game day preview. Let's not forget, it's been so long since that game on Friday. Yeah. Belleville is tied 1-1 in their best of 5 series. So now it's a best of 3, and all 3 games will be in Cleveland starting tomorrow night. Pilsy, give me some quick final thoughts, because classic us off season, lots going on. We go long here for the people, for the citizens on the show.
Final thoughts is, let's be cautiously optimistic about our new official head coach, and let's be toxically positive about where we're going to draft this draft. Like Ross, I don't care where it ends up, really. Obviously, there's good scenarios, bad scenarios. I truly believe, of the limited research we've done of the top 15 players, any pick in the top 10, I think I can spin zone myself to be happy with. So it's all good. It's all good, Sens fans. And
Bob McKenzie said as much. He said in his 35 years of doing draft coverage, the top 10 has never been more wide open.
And just to add on to that, Scott Wheeler, in his most recent prospect update for this draft after U18s, said all of the defensemen in the top 10 this year are better than any defenseman drafted last draft. So,
wait, who took a defenseman in the top 5 last year?
That would be the Montreal Canadiens. David
Reinbacher. He must be doing well in the AHL playoffs, though.
I would assume so. Gotta be.
Oh, wait. The Belleville Sens eliminated them on the second last day of the season. Au revoir, les amis à Montréal. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you for watching, listening, supporting the pod. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.